So presentation today is just about being able to have really efficient workouts, being able to get a lot for your time. We over at the Cougarplex understand that you can't all be there for 2 hours at a time, and if you were, then it'll be a lot more crowded and even harder to get things done. So we're going to talk about a lot of ways to be able to still get something in. Time is obviously a tough thing for everybody, so it's easy to use it as an excuse, but hopefully with some of the principles and styles that I talk about today, we'll be able to have a little bit less of an excuse and a little bit happier with the workout that you get in a small amount of time. So we're going to start out with, wow, that's blurry. Okay, supersets and giant sets. This is a great principle to use to just have things going kind of back and forth. If you guys have ever done Arnold Schwarzenegger's chest and back stuff, that's one of the most classic examples of supersets. That's going to be where he tended to do bench press and pull-ups. You can also do other antagonistic supersets, which is where you're using opposing muscle groups, just like he was. Where, say, you're pushing in one plane, you're going to pull in another plane. This is a lot more common for upper body things because usually in the lower body, you're not going to necessarily be able to pull upwards with your hip flexors, nearly the same strength that you're going to be able to, say, squat, extending downwards. So giant sets are going to be where you're going to be doing just more exercises than just two. A super is, in the literature, going to tend to be just two back and forth between one another with very little rest. A giant set, 3+. This can be done in a way to where you're going to be hitting several muscle groups at once, or you're going to be able to do it in a fashion where you're hitting the same muscle group really redundantly. Some of my favorites are going to be just doing an isolation move before or after some compound movements for a certain area. So say you're trying to hit your shoulders, do some lateral raises to the side and to the front, and then do some shoulder presses, and they're going to be pre-fatigued, and you get a lot more out of just those regular presses than if you just would have done them on their own. I think we missed the circuits here. Circuits are going to be where, instead of super or giant sets where you're doing only a very small amount of exercises, here you're going to be doing many. You think about the machine circuit that we have at the Cougarplex. You're going to be able to go and hit each one of them maybe for 10 reps and move on to the next one, etc., until you're done. That's one example of a circuit. You can also set up your own where you have a couple of kettlebells sitting out, you do some swings, then you grab a lighter one, do some presses, do some push-ups, do some body weight squats, sit in a plank, and keep cycling through that. That's another example of a circuit you're going to be able to perform. This is a great way, again, to get a lot done with just a little bit. A precaution that I would throw out towards you, though, is not going too light on your circuits. A lot of people tend to just kind of go a little bit too easy. I've run into a lot of people before who know what they're going to do on their machine circuit. They know what weight they do, and it's always 10 reps. And they can tell you every single thing they do throughout that whole time. And that's great that they can memorize that and all, but what that tells me is they are so ingrained in that habit that they aren't actually pushing themselves really well. And when you're doing that and you're not ever changing anything, the body never has to adapt. And especially when you don't have much time to get a lot done, you really have to send that really strong stimulus to your body to have to adapt and change. And so really pushing yourself in a circuit is going to be a great way to do that. For example, if you're going around all the machines that we have at the Cougarplex, then you might want to do 10 reps one time and make sure that it's really pushing you. Maybe the second time around the machines, you're not going to be able to get the same weight for 10 reps and you have to lower it. Perfectly fine. That means you're pushing really great, right? The next time you come in and you're doing that circuit, perhaps you do just 6s. Obviously, less reps, you're going to have to go heavier. The next time you come through, maybe 20s. And that's going to be a lot more of a cardio event, right? That's a lot of reps to get done at each machine and then move on to a challenging 20 for the next one. It's going to be a great way to push yourself while mixing it up and having some sort of regimen that you're working with. All right. So rest, pause, and drop sets. These are some of my absolute favorites, especially when we have the two of them combined. So rest, pause is where you're going to be doing a set to failure. Let's say incline bench machine. I really love that with my clients. Torture somebody with it yesterday. So he had to do as many as he could at a certain weight, and then I let him rest for 20 seconds. And it wasn't just, I'm bored, stop. It was, he was dying, so he stopped. He wasn't going to get any more. Rest for 20 seconds, do it again. Rest for 20 seconds, do it again. That's a very typical rest pause set. Again, you can play with those things as well. It can go as high as 90% of your max, doing one at a time, then resting about 30 seconds, another one, and being able to continue that until you get a certain requisite amount of reps, right? So you can play with those different rest periods and numbers of reps that you're getting. What I like to tend to do for rest pause is start out with a weight that you can do about 10 times, and then you'll see what happens in the next 2 sets. Obviously, you're going to kind of hit a wall. And then being able to perhaps up the weight the next time you go. So you're going to have some weight progression as you do it, and just keep pushing yourself in that exercise as well as you can until maybe by the end of, like, say, week 8 of that program, you're going to be getting like 3, 2, and 1. It's going to be pretty darn heavy. And that's exactly what we want, that progression, right? So drop sets are going to be where you're doing the same kind of principle, where you're resting a little bit, but you're dropping the weight in between every time. This is a lot easier to do on a preset machine, where you can just change it while you're sitting right there. So if, for example, I wanted to be a little meaner to myself than I was yesterday on the leg curl machine at the Cougarplex, then I would have done so many reps, as many as I could on that machine, changed the preset setting to something a little bit higher, and immediately done as many reps as I could again. Changed it to a lighter weight, immediately gone again. So that's a really great way, obviously, to have a lot of training density. If you think about if you're stuck at a weight, then you can't do any more. If you would immediately have those pre-fatigued muscles that just had to try to handle that heavy weight, but can't anymore do a lighter weight they're still capable of, it's a way to really, really extend that set. So in order to combine the two of these, it's a good time. You're going to do your rest pause set where you max out, rest 20 seconds, max out, rest 20 seconds, max out. Then you're going to rest about only 2 minutes, drop 20% of the weight, do it again. What I really like doing is gunning for the same amount of reps for every one of the small sets in the beginning with that lighter weight as well. That's a really good push. So I've had my brother doing this. I've done it myself lately. I got a couple clients on a program with mixing these two styles, and I've been getting the text that I like to get saying, my goodness, I am still sore 3 days later. So you know you get a lot out of it when you just do these styles. All right, so when it comes to picking your exercises, it's going to be important to make sure that it's something that gives you a lot of bang for your buck, right? We all know the classic, curls and tricep extensions, right? But think about for building up your arms, for example, if you're going to be doing pull-ups and dips. A lot more load, having to move your body weight around, and you're not going to be able to use nearly as light of weight. There's just no other option, right? So that heavier, more compound stimulus with multiple joints moving is going to be much better hormonally, and then also as a mechanical stimulus for your body. So what I really like doing then is to combine isolation and compound. If I'm really trying to wear out a certain area, say for example you decided to make your workouts more of a bodybuilding split where you have legs one day, back and biceps one day, chest and triceps, abs, and some cardio. So 4-day-a-week workout. If you're really trying to burn out an area, you can pick an isolation movement that gives it no friends to help out. So one of my favorite examples for really blowing up the arms is doing some curls, right? And even doing a supinated curl on the way up and then pronated on the way down. It's called a Zotman curl. And give yourself kind of a pre-fatigue in the arms, and then immediately going to some supinated or neutral grip chin-ups or pull-downs, and then really working that to where your arms are just dying and giving out. But they had the back muscles to help out, kind of give them a friend for a little bit. Then quickly transitioning again to a lighter curl or fewer reps with that same weight and really burning it out. That's a great way to get a lot for a very small amount of time. So picking compound movements is going to be much better for you in the end, particularly if you're doing circuits. It's going to be a lot better stimulus for your body. Again, that mechanical load, because you're able to go heavier if you use more than one joint. And then also, you're going to have a better hormonal output to build muscle, burn fat, and have much healthier stats when it comes to blood pressure, heart rate, etc. All right, 6-12-25. This is the one where, people kind of want to cuss me out. This is a great way to burn out all the muscle fiber types that you have. So if you look at a sprinter and you look at a marathoner, they're built very different, right? But what do they both do? They run. It's the same thing, but their muscle fibers are developed differently. because they're using different energy systems. So we're going to have the ability to contract with really heavy weights for not that long of a time and really light weights for a much longer time, right? So this is a great system to take advantage of that. With the 6, you're going to use a very, very heavy 6. So one of my students yesterday was asking me about doing squats, and she gave me a particular number, and I was like, this is for your boyfriend, isn't it? She's like, yes. So this is a great way to torture someone if you want as well. So her plan is to have her boyfriend do this for squats, so we'll use that as our example. Really heavy 6, so you kind of use percentage of your max or just kind of game it, and feel it out for what you're doing that day. If you're not feeling the best, it's going to be a little bit lighter. Perfectly fine, but as for that day, pushing it as hard as you can on this 6. It's not just going to be a decently difficult 6 reps. Very, very terrible, because then your muscle fibers are so taxed with the ones that can help with the heavy weight, these type 2 muscle fibers, that is going to help bring other muscle fibers into play, and you're going to get much more activation on the 12s when you go a little bit lighter, a medium weight, and then you're really pushing it still for that 12 reps. Then once you drop the weight again and you go to your set at 25, it's going to be pretty rough. You're going to be breathing pretty hard, and you're going to have all your muscle fibers that could be activating at play, because everything else that could have helped has already been worked because you've already done that heavy weight. So this is a wonderful, wonderful way to activate a lot of muscle, get a lot of lactate going, which is going to wind up as colloquially known as lactic acid. And once you get that going, you're going to be pretty darn sore. But what's really great about that is it's going to produce a lot of growth hormone, and it has to actually get shuttled out using oxygen later in the process once you're trying to recover from your workout 2 hours to 2 days later, right? So when it comes to actually burning fat, this is one of my favorite styles as well, because instead of just running really slow on a treadmill, this will burn the muscle groups out way, way faster, way more efficiently than just nice slow cardio. And you'll understand at the end of that 25, you'll be breathing pretty good. Next is intervals. So again, sticking away from kind of that low and slow stuff. If you're going to be trying to burn a lot of calories or get a good aerobic workout, that's going to require obviously pulling in and out a lot of oxygen. You can take 2 hours and take a nice slow jog or a really long walk, or you could do some intervals that are going to cause you to go at a higher intensity and then back down, and that's going to get you a much stronger stimulus overall, right? So interval training, there's a lot of different ways you can go about this. Some of my favorites are getting on the air bike, the rower, a bike, someplace where you're comfortable to really push yourself, and then being able to back right down very quickly as well. So 10 seconds on, full out sprint, 50 seconds nice and easy. 10 minutes is a really good starting point that I put a lot of people on, and it's kind of just bonus cardio. So you get a really solid 10 minutes in that way, and then you get to go from there, do whatever lifting or other things that you want to do, core stabilization work. So intervals can be found really easily as timers on like YouTube or with different apps. So use just beeps. So all you gotta do is wait for the beep. It'll tell you when to work, when to rest, and then you're gonna be able to really attack things from there. You don't necessarily have to go from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the valley, 0% up to 100%. You can kind of play with those ranges in there as well. Sometimes if it's just kind of a bonus cardio day for me, I'll go about 80% of what I think my max would be that day, 8 out of 10 rate or perceived exertion, and then maybe back down to about what I'm feeling is like 50% for that day, and kind of ebb and flow in between there. I'm going to get a little bit more out of it than if I was just going 40%, right? So using intervals is going to be a very efficient way to make sure you get a lot of your cardio in. If you look at CrossFit Endurance, Brian McKenzie is actually a huge proponent of using intervals specifically to get a lot of aerobic benefit from very high intensity exercise. So this high intensity exercise can actually wind up benefiting you for, say, if you want to do a 5K or you just want to get generally better at running, but you don't have the time. Sprints are going to be an absolutely great way of developing that for you. All right. Tabata and Sally. So some of the protocols for intervals are a little bit meaner than that 10 on, 50 off. Tabata is one of them. It was just researched in depth by a Japanese researcher, last name Tabata. First name doctor, I think. And it's just 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 8 rounds. You will be hating Tabata as soon as you're done with it. So it is such a condensed work to rest ratio that it's going to get a lot of training density out of you. So what I would do is start out doing 2 different movements, and on the first round, say do body weight squats, second round do push-ups, something like that, so it's not the same movement every time. Kind of bounce around that stimulus in the body, but you'll still get 4 20-second bouts of each, and that'll be pretty intense. It's 10 seconds less than 4 minutes. There's that less. You could consider a 10-second rest, but you're going to be resting quite a bit longer past the 4-minute mark, and you get a lot of intensity through this. So if you ever want to get a really quick workout in and you literally have less than 5 minutes, it's probably the way to go. If you just have to jump right into it and you're just at your desk in your office or something like that and you're like, I just need a quick 5-minute workout, I would use the first round as kind of a warm-up, just kind of get the kinks out, right? And then really attack it from there. If you're really pushing yourself with a really, really high intensity, you're probably going to kind of fall off the edge of a cliff with this. Rounds 5 or 6, you're going to get a lot less numbers because you're breathing really hard and you got a lot of muscle fatigue going. So super, super efficient, about as good as it gets. It's very, very well researched as well, and just been shown to be ridiculously efficacious for burning fat, building muscle, amplifying the benefit of exercise by far. And then the next one is going to be Sally, and I'm going to get our video pulled up here, maybe. So anybody that's trained with me would start getting PTSD hearing this song. So essentially with this song, you're going to use different movements where you have to do the concentric or pause during the song. So for example, if we're doing with squats, when she says bring Sally up, you stand up. When she says bring Sally down, you sit in the bottom of a squat, right? And weight, up, down, and you gotta hang out here. So it winds up being about 33 reps over the course of a little over 3 minutes again. So it doesn't take too long, but it goes over great. So you're gonna find that doing push-ups, squats, weighted squats. I tried it with pull-ups one time. That was not wise. It was just a lot of grip. But being able to do that with any movement and progressing on that, or using it at the end of a workout for kind of a burnout. For example, if you want to do at the end of a chest workout, had a client do this the other day, had to do Sally push-ups, pausing just above the ground, and we'll say it worked. He showed on his face that it worked. So that's a really, really great way to get in, again, a quick little workout and utilize some muscles that don't normally necessarily have to sit that way. Think about sitting in the bottom of a squat as much as you have to during that song. You already saw just with a couple of reps there, my quads were already starting to kind of get angry at me. So it's a great way to work some muscle actions that aren't typically utilized in most people's workouts. All right, cluster training. Josh Bryant has a lot of good stuff on this, so if you just look up clusters, Josh Bryant, you'll find a lot of really great things. This is a way to increase training density through short rest periods, but it's also small rep ranges to make sure that your body is able to output a lot of force still. Think about if you would have to do a set of 50 compared to 10 sets of 5, that set of 50 isn't going to be nearly the same amount of weight, right, as sets of 5. So if you break up those sets of 5 with, say, just 20 seconds of rest, you're going to be able to really amplify the amount of weight that you use, then the mechanical load that's on your body, and it's a much grander stimulus for your body. And you're going to get 50 reps done in a very short amount of time. Another way to use clusters is to do so many reps, rest so long, and give yourself a time frame. So for example, instead of 10 sets of 5, you're doing 3 reps, resting 15 seconds, and doing that until a 5-minute clock is over, for example. So it's very time-bound, and you get a lot done still. The way I would approach clusters is have something that you could do for about 3 times the amount of reps. So if you're going to do 3s, about 9 or 10 rep max, and then 5s, about a 15 rep max, and then just keep plugging away at that until you're done with the amount of sets that you wanted to do, with the specific amount of rest, or within the time frame that you have. So a good one would be if you're not the best at push-ups, Say you can do 6 push-ups normally, do 2 push-ups, rest 20 seconds, and just keep doing that until you can't accomplish 2 push-ups anymore. So this is a really great way to induce a larger amount of fatigue that your body would be used to, but also accumulate a lot more reps than necessarily you could. If you would say, again, only be able to do 6 push-ups, and then you go straight to 6, go to failure, your body's not going to be able to recover nearly as well, right? But if you're doing a third of that, then you're going to be able to accumulate a lot more. If you do 6, you might fall off and rest a couple of minutes and do 4, and then 3, and then you're just cooked. But if you're just doing 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, you might be able to get 12 sets too. So 24 is going to be a lot more than that 13 in the previous example. So using this to increase that training density and just shorten up rest periods is going to be huge. Any questions?
Printouts of some of those maybe, or?
Yeah, I would definitely do that. Maybe there's something.
Available somewhere if anyone wants.
Yeah. So you have any questions about?
That one?
Yep. Go ahead and shout them out. I won't be able to see you raise your hand.
Oh, me?
Yeah,
Oh,
whatever.
okay, sorry, I saw you,
Here.
okay. I'm just curious, I know like a lot of gyms, you know, if you do the circuit, so I like doing the circuit and I try to get through it quickly, but then I'm trying to be like courteous and cleaning off every equipment piece that I've just used, and it always slows me down.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest?
So
I don't want to like leave it and then someone else starts using it, I'm like, oh.
You're one of the good ones, okay. Appreciate it. So what I would do in that case is perhaps, if it's busier and sometimes you want the next machine and somebody's already on it too, that can slow you down as well. There's a lot of factors. I would honestly use cluster training to make sure you can stick on the same machine until you're completely done with it. That's just a way to help guarantee that you're good to go and you won't need that machine anymore. And then going to the next one, you'll be fine. Even if somebody's there for a couple minutes, it's some of that rest that you've earned anyway, going really hard on the machine already. So let's say that you're on a bench press machine, and then you want to just get a lot of work in on that and then move on to, say, 7 more machines total. If you're doing that 10 sets of 5 with just 15 seconds of rest with a fairly challenging weight, that's a great way to go. If you start burning out, you can either start doing less reps as you go, same amount of rest, or you can lower the weight and continue the same amount of reps. So then you're going to have a condensed 3 to 5 minutes on that machine, be able to clean it off, slow down that breathing during that time, and then move on to the next exercise. And that's going to be a way to kind of mitigate that issue.
And then if I'm doing like cluster training like that, I would assume that you're not going to be going through all those machines, doing something like that, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I would pick just the ones that are kind of, again, just the most bang for your buck. So something that's compound, like a bicep curl machine isn't going to give you nearly as much as a row machine, for example.
I've also just wondered, like, you hear it back and forth. A lot of people are like, well, I just like to work out the upper body one day, the lower body the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And then some are just like, well, that's not as effective. You should do both upper, lower, and that'll be more effective. I mean, what would you suggest?
It depends on how many days a week that you're working out. So if it's only going to be 3 days a week, I would go fairly full body. And a little bit higher frequency is also going to allow for you not to necessarily just train one area to where it's going to get a little bit of stimulus in every one of those workouts. If it's going to be, say, 5-6 days a week, you have to be split up a little bit more. But what I really like doing is, and the research is starting to show a little bit better, is frequency that's not just once a week for an area is actually much better. So spreading out that stimulus. Say if you have arm work that you're doing within your workouts, you do 10 sets on Monday, that compared to 5 sets Monday, 5 sets Thursday is going to be a lot better just splitting it up. So being able to switch to full body depending on how often you can get in there and move things around, that's going to be probably the way to go. But if you're going in there frequently enough, if it's, say, 6 days a week, you can have 3 upper and 3 lower days where you're spreading out that volume and being able to still have that same amount of workload. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What else?
Do you do cardio on those days too, or? The
Yeah.
days you're doing machines, you also do cardio, and it's fine?
Yeah, you can. So there's going to be some overlap where it kind of blunts the response to either one of those. I tend to like to keep some of those things separate, but again, we're talking about being able to be efficient and just get done what you can. So in that case, I would use cardio. Are you thinking like walking or something, or elliptical, like biking?
Anything that doesn't hurt my knees.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
is the problem I'm having now.
Okay. Yeah, so hopping on a rower, light bike, something like that could be almost used as your warm-up in order to get that cardio in, but using it as a 10-minute period to get the blood flowing and then make sure that your body is ready for moving some of those weights. And then the weights can also really be cardio. That 6-12-25 method, a lot of these different methods are really going to get you huffing and puffing, right? If you're able to take 5 minutes at the end of all of your sets after you're just doing a heavy set of 2 and then hanging out for 5 minutes, you're not going to get much cardio out of that. But by using a lot of these intensity techniques, you're going to find that you're breathing pretty good anyway. Awesome. What else we got?
Is there any, I know, I don't know if this is true or not, but is there anything, like after going so intense or trying to be so effective or efficient at the workout, is there suggestions for what you should have for nourishment afterwards? Just kind of help the body kind of heal up until the next time?
Yep. So it depends on what the goal is. So we can go one or two different general pathways. You're going to have, the body wants to do either anabolic things or catabolic things. So anabolic is going to be building itself, and catabolic is going to be breaking down and being in a deficit, right? So if you're trying to purposely gain muscle and increase lean muscle mass, you're going to be in what's called the mTOR pathway, which essentially breaks down to protein synthesis being activated in the body. And then in order to do that, you want a certain amount of an amino acid called L-leucine, which you're going to find in most proteins. You're going to wind up getting enough. So by getting enough of that, it's going to equivalent out to about 30 grams of a typical whey protein, which is why everybody says 30 grams of protein after your workout, because that's going to tend to be enough leucine to activate this pathway to build, right? As you get older, you're going to become more resistant to protein synthesis activation, so you're going to need a little bit more protein. So fair warning on that, you might need a little more as you age. And then in the breaking down category is called AMPK, and that's essentially turning on fat burning and being able to catabolize your body's tissues. Typically in a good way, it's going to be a long time before you tend to lose muscle mass due to this pathway instead of inactivation. But it's going to tell your body, hey, we're a little bit low on energy stores. Let's get some of that fat out there in the bloodstream. Make sure that can go. There, you're going to just try to rehydrate, essentially, and not really spike your blood sugar. On the building side, you want so much protein and some carbs wouldn't hurt either. Help restore some of that energy that you used from your muscles that was stored as carbs within your muscles. So it's kind of depending on what your goal is that day. So you get to kind of pick and choose from there. I got awful sciencey on that one, but I love that topic. So, what else do we have? And also for that one, looking up AMPK, mTOR, article by Cal Dietz, D-I-E-T-Z from University of Minnesota. He has one of the best concise articles about knowing which one you want to do.
Can you say that again?
Yep, it's AMPK and then mTOR. If you would Google that with Cal, C-A-L, D-I-E-T-Z. It should be on excelathlete.com, I believe. He will have a great article about all that stuff. Yep. All right, what else we got? I'll try not to use those weird acronyms again. Nothing else for me? If you got something else you want to discuss, not in this very Grecian forum style like this, just come approach me afterwards. Otherwise, thank you guys. Appreciate it.